Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, make sure you drop your thoughts and the lessons you took from this story in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. The coffee cup slipped from Jada Ellis's fingers and shattered on the kitchen floor, sending brown liquid across the white tiles like spilled blood. She stood frozen, staring at her phone screen, reading the text message that had just destroyed her world. The words burned into her mind. "Cannot wait to see you tonight, baby. Tell your wife you are working late again. Love you more than anything, Sydney." The message was not meant for her. It was meant for her husband of 12 years, Leon. But his phone had died that morning, and in the rush, he had grabbed hers instead, slipping it into his pocket as he left for work, forgetting to switch the numbers in his contacts. Now, every secret, every lie, every stolen moment was laid bare in front of her. Jada's hands shook as she scrolled up through the conversation, months of messages appearing one after another. She saw plans for secret meetings, jokes about cover stories, and lines that made bile rise in her throat. They had laughed about how stupid his wife was, how she never suspected anything. Her stomach turned as she read one of Sydney's messages. "She is so boring compared to you. I do not know how you stand going home to her every night." Leon's response made Jada's knees weaken. "Do not worry, baby. Once I figure out the divorce, it will just be you and me. She will never see it coming." Jada leaned against the counter, her breath coming in shallow bursts. The phone grew sweaty in her hand. For a few long seconds, the kitchen faded, and there was only the white glare of the screen and the sound of her own heart pounding in her ears. The sound of keys jingling outside snapped her back to reality. Leon was home from work. She quickly deleted the text thread from her phone, sent the screenshots to a secure cloud folder she had created on instinct, and placed the phone back where she had found it. When he walked through the door with his usual tired smile, rolling his shoulders like he had carried the whole office on his back, he kissed her cheek the way he had every evening for 12 years. She wanted to scream. Instead, she forced her lips into a smile and asked, "How was your day?" Her voice sounded almost normal. "Same old stuff," Leon said, loosening his tie and tossing his keys into the bowl by the door. "I might have to work late tomorrow, though. Big project coming up at the firm." "Of course," Jada said, keeping her tone even despite the storm raging inside her. "I will save you some dinner." That night, as Leon slept peacefully beside her in their 3-bedroom house in Raleigh, North Carolina, Jada stared at the ceiling, her mind replaying their entire marriage in painful detail. She thought about their wedding day at the little church outside the city, how handsome he had looked in his charcoal suit, how he had cried during his vows and promised to love and honor her forever. She thought about the house they had bought together, the dreams they had shared, the plans they had made. And she thought about Sydney, the 24-year-old intern who had walked into Leon's accounting firm 6 months earlier with a bright smile and ambitious eyes. Jada had met Sydney at the firm's holiday party downtown. The girl had been pretty in that fresh, unlined way that could make a woman in her 30s feel invisible. Leon had introduced them, his hand resting casually on the small of Jada's back. "This is my wife, Jada," he had said. "Jada, this is Sydney, our newest team member." Sydney had shaken Jada's hand with an enthusiastic grip. "I have heard so much about you. Leon talks about you all the time." Jada had believed her. Now, knowing what she knew, the memory tasted bitter. Leon had not been talking lovingly about his wife to his intern. He had been complaining about her, sharing private arguments, small frustrations, details that were supposed to belong only to the two of them. The betrayal cut deeper than the physical affair. It was a complete violation of their trust. By morning, Jada had made her decision. She was not going to confront Leon and beg him to stay. She was not going to cry or plead or compete with a woman barely out of college. She was going to take control of her own story for the first time in years. While Leon showered, she picked up his phone and went through it thoroughly, this time with cold focus. She took screenshots of everything, every message, every photo, every promise, every plan. She uploaded them to the hidden cloud account he did not know existed. Then she went to their shared computer in the home office and began printing bank statements, credit card bills, mortgage papers, investment accounts. Anything that documented the life they had built as a married couple. The printer hummed steadily, spitting out sheet after sheet that represented their years together in numbers and columns. Leon came downstairs in his usual navy slacks and button-up shirt, straightening his tie as he walked into the kitchen. He grabbed his coffee and briefcase without really looking at her. "I will be late tonight," he said, kissing her forehead. "Do not wait up. Have a good day," Jada replied, watching him leave. The door closed behind him with a soft click that sounded, in her ears, like a final goodbye. As soon as his car disappeared down the street, Jada got to work. She called in sick to her job at the downtown library, claiming a stomach bug. Then she went upstairs and opened Leon's closet. One by one, she pulled out his expensive suits, the ones he wore to important client meetings. She folded them carefully and placed them in large black trash bags. His polished shoes, silk ties, watches, favorite cologne. Everything that made him feel powerful and successful followed. She moved through the bedroom like a quiet storm. She packed his personal items, his sports memorabilia, his signed basketball, his collection of cufflinks, the framed plaques from his firm. 12 years of accumulated life reduced to rows of plastic bags lined up neatly by the bedroom door. As she worked, a strange sense of calm washed over her. For the first time in months, she was not wondering where Leon really was or who he was really with. She knew exactly what she was doing and why. The hardest part was packing away their wedding photos. She picked up the silver-framed picture from the dresser showing them cutting their wedding cake, both grinning with joy and hope. The woman in the white dress had trusted completely, loved without reservation. Jada felt a fierce urge to protect that younger version of herself, to stand up for her in a way she had not known how to do then. That woman deserved better than what she had received. By early afternoon, Jada had loaded her car with 10 bulging bags of Leon's belongings. The trunk and back seat were filled to capacity. Her heart pounded as she approached the downtown Raleigh office building where Leon worked as a senior accountant. The glass doors reflected the bright afternoon sun as she parked in the visitor lot. The security guard in the lobby recognized her from firm events and waved her through without question. She took the elevator to the 15th floor, her pulse thrumming in her ears. The doors opened to a familiar scene. The low hum of voices, the ring of phones, the clatter of keyboards. People moved between cubicles, carrying files and coffee cups, heads bent in concentration. Jada walked through it all as if she belonged, carrying the first trash bag over her shoulder. She found Leon's cubicle and set the bag down beside his chair. "Mrs. Ellis?" His secretary, Tina, said, her brows knitting together. "Is everything all right?" "Everything is fine," Jada answered with a cool smile. "I am just bringing Leon some things he forgot at home." Tina looked unsure, but nodded and turned back to her computer. Jada made trip after trip down to her car. Bag after bag went up in the elevator and onto the gray carpeted floor around Leon's workspace. By the time she was finished, his cubicle looked like the aftermath of a yard sale. Suits were folded on his chair. Shoes were lined in a crooked row. Trash bags full of his life were piled against the partition wall. Colleagues began to notice. A cluster of associates gathered near the copier, watching with barely concealed curiosity. "What is all this for?" asked Tom from the next cubicle, adjusting his glasses. "You will see," Jada replied, her voice steady. She saved the best for last. From her purse, she pulled a thick manila envelope and placed it in the center of Leon's desk where it could not be missed. Inside were printed copies of every text message and email between Leon and Sydney that she had found. On top, she placed a single sheet of paper with a handwritten note. "Since you forgot to take your things when you moved in with your girlfriend," the note read, "I brought them to you. Do not come home. The locks are being changed." She stared at the words for a moment, then tucked the envelope flap securely. Conversations in the office swelled and shifted around her. Someone whispered her name. Someone else whispered Leon's. Jada rode the elevator back down, walked through the lobby, and returned to her car in the garage. She pulled into a spot where she could see the building's front entrance through the glass. Then she waited. Her phone buzzed repeatedly. Unknown numbers, the office line, Leon's number, but she ignored them all. She wanted to see his face when he walked into that cubicle and realized his double life had detonated. At exactly 4:30 in the afternoon, the elevator doors in the lobby opened and Leon stepped out, laughing at something a coworker had said. He looked relaxed and confident, his suit jacket slung over one arm, his posture loose. Jada watched him cross the lobby, swipe his badge, and disappear down the hallway toward his section. For a few minutes, nothing happened. Then her phone rang again. This time, she answered. "What in the world is this?" Leon's voice was low and tight with panic. In the blurred reflection of the lobby glass, she could see him standing at his desk, surrounded by coworkers, hands trembling as he held her note. "It is your stuff," Jada said calmly. "Since you are planning to divorce me anyway, I thought I would save you the trouble of packing." Jada, we need to talk. This is not what it looks like. His voice cracked. She could hear murmurs around him, someone gasping quietly, someone else muttering Leon's name. It looks like my husband of 12 years has been sleeping with a young woman from his office and planning to leave me for her, Jada replied. Is that not what it looks like? Silence met her question. In the distance, through the glass, she saw Leon glance around frantically, as if searching for a way to control the damage. Several colleagues were reading the pages spread across his desk. Phones were out. Someone was already texting. In a place where gossip moved faster than email, this would be everywhere in minutes. How did you even? Leon began. You took my phone by mistake this morning, Jada cut in. Sydney sent you a very sweet message about how much she loves you and how boring your wife is. That was my first clue. More silence. Jada pictured his face draining of color, his eyes darting toward Tina, toward Tom, toward anyone who might be listening. Where is she? Jada asked. Who? Leon said, but his voice was hollow. Do not play dumb. Where is Sydney? I assume she is somewhere in that office, hiding in a conference room or the restroom, wondering how everything fell apart. She went home early today, Leon stammered. How convenient, Jada said. She started her car, the engine rumbling to life. Well, when you see her tonight, you can thank her for me. She saved me from wasting any more years on this marriage. Jada, do not do this. We can work through this, Leon said quickly. There is nothing to work through, Jada replied. You made your choice months ago. I am just making mine now. She hung up and pulled out of the garage. Her hands were steady on the steering wheel, but inside, a tremor of exhaustion was beginning to replace the adrenaline that had kept her upright all day. At home, she called a locksmith and scheduled an immediate visit. While she waited, she moved through the house systematically, removing every visible trace of Leon's presence. His pictures came down from the walls. His books were boxed from the shelves. His coffee mug, the one that said Best Accountant, went into a cardboard box headed for storage. She was not erasing their history. She was reclaiming her space. The locksmith arrived just as the sun was beginning to set, an older man with kind eyes and a calm manner. He did not ask why she was changing the locks in the middle of the week. He simply set to work. All set, he said an hour later, placing a small key ring on the table. Are you sure you do not want to keep one of the old locks, just in case? I am sure, Jada answered. Her voice surprised her with how firm it sounded. After he left, she ordered Chinese food and ate it alone at what had once been their kitchen table and was now simply her table. The silence felt different than it had that morning. Back then, the quiet had been heavy with lies and secrets. Now, it was filled with truth and the faint hum of possibility. As she rinsed her plate, her phone buzzed with a text from her younger sister, Candace. Girl, I just saw online that people at Leon's job are talking about some drama at the office. What happened? Jada stared at the screen, then smiled for the first time all day. She had forgotten how quickly news traveled in Raleigh. By tomorrow morning, half the city would know that Leon's affair had exploded in public. She called Candace. Are you sitting down? She asked. Oh my goodness, what did he do? Candace demanded. Jada told her everything. The text messages, the months of betrayal, her afternoon mission to deliver Leon's life to his workplace. Candace listened with a mixture of outrage and admiration, occasionally punctuating the story with disbelieving exclamations. I cannot believe you did that, Candace said when Jada finished. My quiet big sister, turning his office into a free storage unit. I am proud of you. I surprised myself too, Jada admitted. Are you okay though? Really okay? Candace asked gently. Jada considered it. She felt angry, hurt, and tired down to her bones. But beneath all that, she felt something else. I think I am, she said slowly. For the first time in a long time, I am not wondering where he is or who he is with. I know exactly where he is, and I do not care anymore. The next morning, Jada woke up to 17 missed calls and more than 40 text messages. Friends, coworkers, relatives, and even people she barely knew were reaching out with shock, sympathy, and barely contained curiosity. Her supervisor at the library, Denise, sent a short message. Take whatever time you need. We have your back. Jada felt a wave of gratitude. At 8 o'clock that morning, her best friend Alana showed up on her doorstep with coffee and pastries. I came as soon as I heard, Alana said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. Candace called me last night. I cannot believe that man did this to you. How did Candace know to call you? Jada asked, even as she took the coffee gratefully. Because your sister knows you are going to need your girls, Alana said. And because she knows I have been waiting for an excuse to say exactly what I think about Leon for years. You never liked him? Jada asked, half teasing, half serious. He always seemed too proud of himself, Alana replied. Like he was doing you a favor by being married to you. I kept quiet because you looked happy, but I saw it. I saw you shrinking yourself around him. Jada frowned. Shrinking myself? You stopped asking for what you needed, Alana said. You stopped inviting him to things when he kept saying no. You stopped talking about your own dreams. You made yourself small so he would not feel inconvenienced. They sat at the kitchen table while Alana pulled out a notepad. So, what is the plan? She asked. Plan? Jada repeated. Yes, the plan, Alana said. You already embarrassed him publicly, which was brilliant. But what comes next? You are not just going to hand him an easy divorce and let him ride off into the sunset with his intern, are you? Jada frowned. What else am I supposed to do? We are going to make sure he faces consequences, Alana said, eyes gleaming. Real consequences. Legal, financial, professional. Nothing illegal. Just the kind of reality check men like him never expect. Before Jada could respond, her phone rang again. The caller ID showed Leon's office number. Do not answer it, Alana said immediately. It might be important, Jada murmured. It is important to him, Alana replied. Let him stew. You hold all the power right now. Do not hand it back. Jada turned off her phone. The silence felt like a door closing. Good, Alana said. Now, tell me more about this Sydney. Jada described the intern. Young, ambitious, eager to impress, clearly charmed by Leon's attention. She probably thinks she is starring in some romantic movie where love conquers all, Alana said dryly. She has no idea what real life with a man like that looks like. Do you think he will cheat on her too? Jada asked. Men who cheat do not suddenly become faithful because they have a new partner, Alana said. They just have a new victim. He cheated on the woman he promised to love forever. Why would he treat a 6-month affair partner better? Jada realized she did not actually care what happened to Sydney in the long run. Her concern was her own life. By noon, Candace arrived with groceries and backup in the form of their cousin Robin, who worked as a paralegal, and their neighbor, Mrs. Washington, who had been divorced twice and considered herself something of an expert on men who failed to keep their vows. I never liked the way that boy walked around like he was a gift, Mrs. Washington said, settling into a chair like she owned the place. Honey, it was the other way around. You were the gift. Robin set her laptop on the kitchen counter and pulled out a legal pad. First thing we need to do is document everything, she said. You said you took screenshots? Jada nodded and handed over a folder with printed messages. Robin flipped through them, her expression growing more serious by the second. These are very clear, she said. We also need statements from all your accounts. If he has been spending marital money on this affair, that matters. Is that legal? Jada asked. It is your money too, Robin said. You have every right to know where it has been going. As the afternoon went on, Jada's house gradually filled with women. Friends from work, members of her book club, neighbors, and even a couple of acquaintances who had heard what happened and came by with food or hugs. It felt like a wake, except instead of mourning a person, they were marking the end of a marriage that had been dying quietly for years. Everyone seemed to have a story. Someone remembered watching Leon ignore Jada at a barbecue. Another recalled him dismissing her job at the library as cute. The book club president, Eleanor, said, I always wondered why you stopped bringing him to meetings. You used to try so hard to include him. Jada remembered the last time she had invited Leon. He had said reading was a waste of time and suggested she find more productive hobbies. The women around the table made sounds of disgust. Productive hobbies? Alana said. Like what? Cheating on your wife with an intern. The group laughed, but Jada felt something deeper than amusement. For the first time, she saw her marriage from the outside, through other people's eyes. Patterns she had explained away or ignored came into sharp focus. By evening, most of the visitors had gone home, leaving Jada with Alana, Candace, and Robin. They went over the list of assets: the house, Leon's retirement account, joint savings, investment funds, his collection of vintage watches that he thought she did not know were valuable. You are not going to let guilt or nostalgia make you settle for less, Candace said firmly. Half of everything you built is yours. The next morning, Jada walked into the law office of Angela Cooper, a well-known divorce attorney in Raleigh. The space was warm and professional, with soft lighting and framed art on the walls. Angela, a woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and sharp, kind eyes, gestured for Jada to sit. I have heard a bit about your situation, Angela said. News travels quickly in this town. Jada felt her cheeks heat. I probably should not have made such a public scene at his office, she said. On the contrary, that was a smart move, Angela replied. His co-workers witnessed the evidence of his affair. It will be difficult for him to pretend you are being irrational or that this is a misunderstanding. That gives us leverage. Angela took careful notes as Jada told the story from the text message discovery to the public confrontation at the firm. You said you have documentation of their messages? Angela asked. Jada handed over the folder of printed screenshots. Angela flipped through them, occasionally underlining a line or circling a date. These are excellent, she said. They show intent to leave you and continue this relationship. In this state, adultery combined with misuse of marital funds can affect the division of property. Misuse of funds? Jada repeated. Hotel rooms, dinners, gifts, possibly rent if he is paying for an apartment, Angela explained. If he has been using your shared money to support this affair, that matters legally. We will need comprehensive bank and credit card statements. It might be tedious, but it is worth it. After the appointment, Jada went straight to the bank and requested 2 years of statements for all of their accounts. The teller, a polite young man, looked overwhelmed by the volume. This is a lot of transactions, he said. I need all of them, Jada replied. While she waited for the stack of papers, her phone buzzed with another call from Leon. She ignored it and focused on what mattered. That evening, she spread the statements across her dining room table and began to read line by line, a highlighter in her hand. At first, everything looked routine: grocery stores, gas stations, mortgage payments, utilities. The ordinary expenses of shared life. Then she noticed charges at restaurants she had never visited, a jewelry store purchase in March that had never resulted in a gift, hotel bills on nights when Leon claimed he had been working late. The most startling discovery was a recurring payment to a place called Riverwalk Lofts. $500, every month for the last 6 months. Jada searched the name online and felt her chest tighten when she saw the address, an upscale apartment complex across town. It was exactly the kind of place a young professional might live if someone else was helping with rent. He has been paying for her apartment, Jada said aloud to the empty room. Seeing it in black and white made the betrayal feel fresh. It was one thing to know he had cheated. It was another to realize he had been building a separate life, funded with money that should have supported their shared future. Rage simmered beneath her ribs. Her doorbell rang, breaking her concentration. She peered through the peephole and saw a delivery driver holding an enormous bouquet of flowers. She almost did not answer, suspecting they were from Leon, but curiosity got the better of her. Jada Ellis? The driver asked. She nodded, accepted the flowers, and read the card. From everyone at the library. We are proud of you for standing up for yourself. Take all the time you need. Tears blurred her vision. She set the flowers in a vase and was still adjusting them when her phone rang again. This time, the caller ID said Sydney. Jada stared at the name, her jaw tightening. Part of her wanted to reject the call. Part of her wanted to hear what the other woman could possibly say. On the 5th ring, she answered. Mrs. Ellis? Sydney's voice was tentative. I was not sure you would pick up. I was not sure I would either, Jada replied. What do you want? There was a pause. I wanted to talk to you, Sydney said. To explain. Jada's grip tightened on the phone. Explain what? She asked, her voice cool. That you have been sleeping with my husband for months? That you joked about how boring I am? That you planned my divorce before I even knew anything was wrong? It was not supposed to happen like this, Sydney said in a small voice. How was it supposed to happen? Jada asked. Were you going to wait until after he divorced me to start sleeping with him? Or were you just hoping I would never find out? I do not know, Sydney whispered. I did not think it through. You did not think about the woman whose husband you were taking, Jada said. You did not think about the marriage you were helping to destroy. You just wanted what you wanted. That is not fair, Sydney protested. What is not fair is finding out your husband of 12 years has been living a double life, Jada said. What is not fair is learning he has been paying your rent with money that was supposed to be for our future. That is what is not fair. There was a long silence. Why are you calling me, Sydney? Jada asked finally. What did you think this conversation would do? I just wanted you to know that I never meant to hurt you, Sydney said. But you did hurt me, Jada replied. You hurt me badly. And the fact that you did not mean to does not erase that. Another pause. I know, Sydney said quietly. I am sorry. Are you really sorry? Jada asked. Or are you just sorry you got caught? Sydney hesitated. I do not know, she admitted. At least you are finally being honest about something, Jada said. She looked down at the highlighted statements, the proof of Leon's secret spending. Let me give you some advice. Men who cheat on their wives do not suddenly become faithful boyfriends. If Leon could lie to me for months, he can lie to you too. It is different with us, Sydney insisted weakly. That is exactly what they all say, Jada replied. Good luck with that. She ended the call and set her phone down with a firm click. Her hands were shaking, but not from fear. She called Angela's office and left a detailed message about the apartment payments and the suspicious charges she had found. Then she called Alana. He has been paying for her apartment, Jada said without preamble. $500 a month for 6 months, plus hotel rooms and dinners. Thousands of dollars of our money. Good, Alana said. That is going to cost him in the divorce. Let him feel it. That night, Jada spread the statements across her living room floor and continued highlighting anything that looked tied to the affair. The more she looked, the clearer the pattern became. Leon had not just been careless. He had been deliberate, arranging his affairs, literally and financially, while expecting her to stay in the dark. But she was done being the last to know. A week later, Jada walked back into the library for the first time since everything had happened. Her coworkers greeted her with hugs and warm smiles, but no one pressed for details. They simply gave her space and respect. During lunch, Denise sat across from her in the staff room. You know, half the married women I know have been talking about what you did, Denise said. One of the women in the children's department finally confronted her husband about his gambling. She said she was inspired by you. Jada was shelving books in the fiction section that afternoon when she noticed someone lingering near the romance novels. At first, she did not recognize the slim young woman with long braids and a designer handbag. Then the woman turned, and Jada found herself face to face with Sydney. The younger woman looked nervous and thinner than before, shadows under her eyes. Mrs. Ellis, Sydney said quietly. It is Ms. Williams now, Jada said, surprised by how natural the correction felt. I went back to my maiden name. And it is Jada. What are you doing here? I come here sometimes, Sydney said. I did not realize you worked at this branch. The lie was obvious. In their town, everyone knew Jada worked at the downtown library. Can we talk? Sydney asked. Please. Just for a few minutes. Jada checked the time. She had 15 minutes left on her break. Against her better judgment, she nodded toward a quiet table tucked between the history and biography shelves. They sat, and for a moment neither of them spoke. What do you want to talk about? Jada asked finally. Things with Leon are not what I thought they would be, Sydney said, twisting her hands in her lap. What did you think they would be? Jada asked. I thought once you knew about us, it would be easier, Sydney said. That we would not have to sneak around anymore. That we could be together openly. Jada studied her. And it is not easier? She asked. No, Sydney said. He is angry all the time now. About the divorce, about losing the house, about everyone at work knowing. He says I ruined his life. He says if I had not sent that text, none of this would have happened. Jada almost laughed. So in his mind, it is your fault that he was caught cheating on his spouse, she said. Yes, Sydney whispered. And maybe he is right. If I had been more careful. Stop, Jada said firmly. Do not do that. Do not let him put this on you. Leon chose to have an affair. Leon chose to lie to both of us. Leon chose to use our money on that affair. You did not force any of it. You are responsible for your choices, but not for his. Sydney looked genuinely surprised. You know about the apartment? She asked. I know about a lot of things now, Jada said. Bank records are very revealing. He told me his marriage was basically over, Sydney said. He said you were just roommates, just going through the motions. He said you had grown apart years ago. Jada remembered the text in which Leon had called her boring. He told me something similar about his ex before me, Jada said. Men like him tell that story over and over. They do not leave because they are deeply unhappy. They look for thrills because they are restless. Do you think he will do the same thing to me? Sydney asked, her voice small. I think Leon is a man who gets excited by what is new and loses interest in what is familiar, Jada said. I think he is attracted to drama and secrecy more than he is to real partnership. Whether he cheats on you is his choice. But nothing about his history suggests he has suddenly become trustworthy. Sydney stared down at her hands. He already seems resentful, she said. As if everything would be fine if I had just kept my mouth shut. I know that is not true, but sometimes he is so convincing that I start to doubt myself. Jada felt a flicker of sympathy. She had spent years doubting herself too. "You're going to have to decide what kind of life you want," Jada said. "But understand this. His behavior with you was not a one-time lapse. It was a pattern." Jada stood when her break ended. "I need to get back to work," she said. "I am not going to tell you what to do. But I hope you make choices that protect your future more than he protected mine." Sydney nodded, tears in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. As Jada walked away, she felt lighter. For the first time, she saw Sydney not as a villain, but as another person Leon had lied to. Weeks passed. The divorce process moved forward, slow but steady. With Angela's guidance and the evidence Jada had gathered, the negotiations left Leon on the defensive. Adultery, misuse of funds, and the very public nature of his affair made it hard for him to argue for lenient terms. One crisp October morning, Jada sat in Angela's office, signing the final stack of documents that officially ended her 12-year marriage. Her hand did not tremble. When she finished the last signature, Angela smiled. "Congratulations," she said. "You are officially a free woman. You kept the house, you received a fair share of the retirement savings, and you have spousal support for 3 years while you build your career. Given the circumstances, this is an excellent outcome." Jada walked out of the office into the bright Raleigh sunlight feeling lighter. She had expected tears, but instead she felt relief. The uncertainty was over. There would be no more waiting for Leon to decide if he wanted their marriage. She had decided for both of them. "What is the first thing you are going to do?" Candace asked on the phone later that day. Jada did not hesitate. "Travel," she said. "I am going to take a month off and see the country." Over the next few days, she booked a trip that carried her from Raleigh to New York City, then to Washington, D.C., then on to New Orleans and San Francisco. For years, she had said, "someday," when she talked about seeing more of the United States. Someday had finally arrived. She traveled alone and discovered she liked her own company. She ate in restaurants without feeling self-conscious, wandered through museums, listened to street musicians, and filled her phone with photos of places that made her feel alive. When she returned, a little jet-lagged and sun-kissed, she walked into the library and headed for the reference desk. As she was sorting returned books, a man approached with a stack in his arms. He was tall, with warm brown skin, a peppered beard, and thoughtful eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Something in his face tugged at her memory. "Excuse me," he said. "Are you Jada Williams?" "Yes," she said cautiously. "Do we know each other?" He smiled, revealing a dimple in his left cheek. "I am not surprised you do not recognize me. It has been almost 20 years. I am Calvin Price. We went to college together. English literature program." Jada blinked, and suddenly she saw him as he had been. A lanky 20-year-old sitting behind her in Professor James's Shakespeare class, scribbling notes and occasionally making quiet jokes under his breath. "Oh my goodness," she said. "Calvin, I remember. You always had something smart to say in class." "I remember thinking the same about you," he said. "I am teaching now. I am a professor at the university across town." They talked for a few minutes about where life had taken them, how he had married, divorced, and was co-parenting 2 teenage daughters, how she had built a life in Raleigh at the library. "I heard about your divorce," Calvin said gently. "I am sorry. That must have been hard. How did you hear about it?" Jada asked, a little embarrassed. "Small city," he said with a rueful smile. "Also, a few of my colleagues use your story in their women's studies classes as an example of how to handle betrayal with dignity." Jada groaned. "That is embarrassing." "Are you kidding?" Calvin said. "Half the faculty wives wish they had your courage." A patron interrupted, and Calvin drifted over to the history section, pretending to browse until she was free again. "This might be presumptuous," he said when she walked over to reshelve a book. "But would you like to have coffee sometime? It would be nice to really catch up." Jada hesitated. She had not been on a date since her wedding. The idea was both terrifying and exhilarating. "I would like that," she heard herself say. They met that Saturday at a quiet cafe near the university. What Jada thought would be a polite hour of catching up stretched into 4 hours of easy conversation. Calvin talked about his students, the joy and frustration of teaching young adults who sometimes forgot their own brilliance. She talked about the library, about her trip across the country, about how strange and freeing it felt to live alone. "You always were the most insightful person in our literature classes," Calvin said over their second cup of coffee. I had a serious crush on you back then, but you were dating that tall guy from the basketball team. Marcus, I think. Jada laughed, surprised. I had no idea, she said. I was very subtle, Calvin replied. Probably too subtle. Jada felt heat rise in her cheeks. What happened to subtle? She asked. 20 years, Calvin said, and a lot of life. I have learned that it is better to tell people how you feel than to assume there will always be more time. The comment hung between them, full of possibilities. Jada took a slow breath. I should tell you, she said carefully. I am not looking for anything serious. I just got out of a long marriage. I am still figuring out who I am as a single woman. That is perfect, Calvin said. I am not looking to rush into anything either. I am still figuring out how to balance being a father and having my own life. Maybe we can figure things out together. No pressure. That sounded reasonable and honest. They began seeing each other casually. Coffee after work, walks around the neighborhood, occasional dinners at small restaurants where they could talk without shouting over music. Calvin was everything Leon had not been. When he said he would call, he did. When he made plans, he showed up on time. When she talked, he listened without turning the conversation back to himself. One evening, after they had seen a movie and were walking through downtown Raleigh, he said, I like the way you think, Jada. I always did. I am glad life brought us back into each other's orbit. About 3 months into their slow-growing relationship, Jada ran into Sydney again, this time at the grocery store. Sydney looked healthier, with more color in her face and less of the frantic energy Jada had seen before. Hi, Jada, Sydney said. How are you? I am well, Jada replied, and realized it was true. How are you? Did the situation with the firm resolve? It did, Sydney said. I found a new job at a smaller firm near Charlotte. The lawsuit settled. Your testimony made a big difference. I was able to cover my expenses while I looked for work. I am glad it worked out, Jada said. Earlier that year, Sydney's attorney, Harold Green, had called Jada asking if she would testify about how she had discovered the affair and made it public without Sydney's involvement. At first, Jada had refused. Then she had reconsidered. She had realized that while Sydney had made harmful choices, Leon had used his power as a senior employee to pursue a much younger subordinate, then allowed her to take the full professional fall. Testifying had felt less like helping the other woman, and more like making sure the blame landed where it belonged. You did not have to help me, Sydney said now. I know I did not deserve your kindness after everything. We were both deceived by the same man, Jada said. It made more sense to stand on the same side of the truth than to fight each other. Sydney nodded, eyes shining. For what it is worth, I learned a lot. I will never get involved with a married man again, no matter what story he tells. That sounds like a good decision, Jada said. They parted on surprisingly friendly terms, and Jada felt another weight lift from her shoulders. Months later, Calvin sat across from her at a small restaurant in downtown Atlanta, where they had driven for a weekend getaway. Over a plate of pasta, he said, I have something to tell you. Jada felt a flicker of anxiety. In her experience, that phrase rarely introduced good news. What is it? She asked. I have been offered a sabbatical, Calvin said. A full year in Atlanta, working on a research project at Emory University. They want me to teach a few classes and work with their archives. I was not sure if I would accept, but after hearing about how much you love traveling, I started to imagine what it might look like if... He trailed off, watching her carefully. If what? Jada prompted. If you came with me, Calvin finished. Not permanently. Maybe for a few months. You could take a leave of absence from the library. We could rent an apartment, explore the city, see what life looks like somewhere new. A year earlier, the idea would have terrified her. Now it sent a thrill through her. That is a big step, she said. We have only been dating for a few months. I know, Calvin said. And if it is too much, I respect that. But I think what we have is special. Life is short. I do not want to look back and wish I had been brave enough to see what might have been possible. Jada looked at him, at the quiet steadiness in his eyes, at the way he had consistently shown up for her. Ask me again in 6 months, she said. After we have had more time to see where this is going. Relief softened his expression. That sounds fair, he said. No pressure. Just possibility. 6 months later, possibility became reality. After one more long conversation with Denise, who assured her that the library would hold her position for a year, Jada agreed to go. They found a small apartment in Midtown Atlanta, walking distance from parks and coffee shops. Jada took a part-time position at a research library connected to the university, working in special collections surrounded by old documents and quiet stories. Life in Atlanta unfolded in gentle layers. Jada and Calvin developed routines that felt natural rather than obligatory. He cooked breakfast most mornings while she packed her work bag. She handled groceries and planning dinners, discovering she actually enjoyed cooking when she was not constantly worried about whether the effort would be dismissed. They split chores without drama. If he saw dishes in the sink, he washed them. If she noticed laundry piled up, she started a load. Weekends were for exploration. They walked through Piedmont Park, listening to families laugh and dogs bark along the paths. They tried restaurants in different neighborhoods, from soul food spots to quiet cafes tucked down side streets. They took short trips to nearby cities, planning longer drives to places they had always wanted to see. Jada felt more alive than she had in years. One evening, as they sat on their small balcony watching the Atlanta skyline glow in the dusk, Calvin said, "I do not think I have ever seen you this happy." "I do not think I have ever been this happy," Jada admitted. She thought about Leon sometimes, not with longing, but with a sort of distant curiosity. She had heard through Candace that he was still in Raleigh, still at the same firm, that his promotion had been quietly given to someone else after the scandal. Somewhere along the way, Sydney had moved on completely, and Leon had begun dating someone closer to his own age. 1 year after the divorce had been finalized, Jada stood in front of her bathroom mirror in Atlanta applying lipstick for dinner at Calvin's place. They had been together for more than a year now. What had started as cautious dating had grown into a deep, steady partnership. She was looking forward to a quiet evening. Just the two of them, homemade food, easy conversation. Her phone buzzed with a text from Alana. "How is it going with the professor?" "Still thinking about staying in Atlanta." Jada smiled and wrote back, "We are talking about it seriously now. I might extend my leave from the library." The reply came immediately. "Do it. You sound happier than you have in years." As she adjusted one of her earrings, the doorbell rang. She frowned, expecting no one. When she opened the door, a delivery person stood there with a large bouquet of flowers. "For Jada Williams," he said. She signed, thanked him, and checked the card. Her heart sank when she saw the signature. "I miss you every day. I will never stop hoping you will give us another chance. Leon." She stared at the flowers, feeling irritation and a twinge of sadness. After all this time, he was still trying to tug on the threads of a life that no longer existed. She debated throwing the bouquet directly into the trash, but set it aside on the counter instead. Her phone rang a few minutes later. It was Calvin. "I am so sorry," he said. "My youngest daughter just showed up at my door. She had a fight with her mother and drove down from campus. Can we reschedule dinner?" "Of course," Jada said immediately. "She needs you. We can see each other another night." "You are amazing," Calvin said. "This is one of the many reasons I am crazy about you." After they hung up, Jada found herself unexpectedly alone for the evening. She poured a glass of wine, thinking she might call Candace or Alana. Before she could, the doorbell rang again. This time, when she checked the peephole, she saw Leon standing on her porch. For a moment, she simply stared. He looked older, his hair thinner, lines etched around his mouth. Hesitating only a second, she opened the door just enough to speak. "What are you doing here, Leon?" she asked. "I was hoping we could talk," he said. "Did you get the flowers?" "I got them," Jada answered. "And the message?" "The answer is still no." "Can I please come in?" "Just for a few minutes," he asked. Her first impulse was to refuse. But there was something in his expression, a weary vulnerability, that made her pause. "5 minutes," she said. "No more." She stepped aside and watched him carefully as he entered. Leon looked around the apartment, taking in the bright artwork, the books stacked neatly on shelves, the photographs from her travels and from Atlanta. "This place looks good," he said. "Different, but good." "Thank you," Jada replied. "What did you want to say?" Leon sank onto the edge of the couch, running his hands through his hair. "I made the biggest mistake of my life when I cheated on you," he said. "I know I have said that before, but I need you to know that I understand it now." "I believe you regret it," Jada said. "But that does not change the past." "I have been going to therapy," Leon said, "trying to figure out why I ruined the best thing that ever happened to me. The therapist says I am afraid of real intimacy, that I create chaos because I do not know how to sit with feeling vulnerable. I want to be better. I want to be the man you deserved." "That is good," Jada said. "I am glad you are getting help." "I want to prove it to you," he said. If I really change, if I keep going to therapy, if I do the work, would you ever consider giving us another chance? Jada looked at him, really looked. She saw the man she had married and the man who had betrayed her, layered over each other like two images on the same page. She felt sadness for what they had lost, but she also felt something else, certainty. No, she said gently. Even if you change, I will not come back. Leon flinched. Even if I can show you I am different, he asked. Even then, Jada said. What we had is over. Not only because you cheated, but because I am not the same person I was when we married. I have built a life I love now, and it does not include going backward. Are you seeing someone? Leon asked after a moment. Jada considered how much to share. Yes, she said finally. I am. Is it serious? He asked quietly. It is growing into something serious, she said. Do you love him? The question caught her off guard. She thought of Calvin's steady presence, his humor, his patience, the way he looked at her like her thoughts mattered. I do not know yet, she said honestly. But I know I am happy with him in a way I was not with you, even when things were good between us. What is so different about him? Leon asked, his voice raw. He sees me as a whole person, Jada said. He encourages my independence. He does not make me feel like I should be grateful for his attention. He treats my dreams as real, not as distractions. Leon looked down, jaw tight. I did make you feel that way, did I not? He asked. Yes, Jada said. Regularly. You may not have meant to, but you did. Leon's eyes glistened. I am sorry, he said. For all of it. For taking you for granted, for lying, for being too proud to say I was scared instead of running from you. Jada felt tears prick her own eyes, not from longing, but from the weight of everything that had brought them here. I forgive you, she said quietly. She realized as she spoke that it was true. I forgive you for the affair, for the lies, for making me small. But forgiveness does not mean reconciliation. That chapter is closed. Leon stood slowly, looking both defeated and strangely lighter. I guess I needed to hear you say that clearly, he said. I have been holding on to this hope for so long. I kept thinking if I found the right words, I could turn back time. You deserve to find peace too, Jada said. Just not with me. Our story is over. We are different people now. After he left, Jada sat on the couch in the quiet apartment, letting the emotions pass through her. She felt a soft ache, but underneath it was something firmer, freedom. Her phone buzzed with a text from Calvin. Crisis averted. My daughter is feeling better. Too late for dinner. But do you want to come over for a glass of wine and conversation? Jada smiled. I am on my way, she replied. Calvin's townhouse was warm and full of soft light when she arrived. He met her at the door with a hug and a glass of wine. You look thoughtful, he said. Everything all right? Leon came by, Jada said. He wanted to talk about getting back together. Calvin's expression darkened with concern. How do you feel? He asked. Completely sure that it is not what I want, she said. I told him no, and I realized I meant it with my whole heart. I am glad, Calvin said softly. Not because I see him as competition, but because you deserve to want your own life without guilt. They sat on the couch, Jada tucked under his arm, the quiet between them comfortable. After a while, she said, I have been thinking about your sabbatical. About Atlanta. I want to stay. I want to extend my leave and see what we can build here. Calvin pulled back enough to look into her face. Are you sure? He asked. I never want you to feel pressured. I am sure, Jada said. Tonight made me realize I am done looking backward. I want to move forward, with you, with this life. Calvin smiled, relief and joy mingling in his eyes. I am grateful, he said. I already started looking at apartments in case we stayed longer. That might have been presumptuous. That was optimistic, Jada said. There is a difference. They spent the rest of the evening talking about practical things, renewing the lease, her extending her leave from the library, his potential promotion at the university, and impractical dreams, like road trips they wanted to take and classes she might enroll in just for fun. Jada went home that night feeling something she had not felt in years, excited for the future. 6 months later, on a clear morning, Jada stood at the window of the apartment she now fully shared with Calvin, watching Atlanta move below. People walked dogs, buses rumbled past, sunlight glinted off glass towers. She held a mug of tea in her hands. Somewhere along the way, she had developed a love for quiet morning rituals. Good morning, beautiful, Calvin said, wrapping his arms around her from behind and kissing the top of her head. Good morning, she said, leaning back into him. Sleep well. Better than I have in years, he replied. Something about this city agrees with me. Just the city, she asked lightly. The company helps, he said, smiling against her hair. They sat down to breakfast at their small kitchen table. I have news, Calvin said between bites of toast. Good news or bad? Jada asked. Good, I think, he said. The department head called yesterday. They are so pleased with my work here that they want me to extend my stay for another year. It would mean teaching a few classes, more research, more stability. But it also means asking you to stay too. Jada looked around the apartment, thought about the life they had built, the friends she had made at the research library, the rhythm they had found together. I would love to stay another year, she said. I will need to talk to Denise, but she already told me she would support whatever decision I made. There is more, Calvin said, his expression turning serious. What is it? She asked. Extending the sabbatical like this is not just an adventure anymore, he said. It is the beginning of building something permanent. I would be committing to a long-term position here. And I do not want to do that unless we both acknowledge that what we are building together is real. Her heart beat faster. What are you saying? She asked quietly. Calvin took her hands across the table. I am saying that I am falling in love with you more every day, he said. I am saying that I love the life we have created together. I want to see what happens if we stop thinking of this as temporary and start calling it home. The words settled over her like a warm blanket. Jada felt tears prick her eyes, this time not from pain but from a deep, stunned joy. She thought of the woman she had been when she first read that text message in her kitchen in Raleigh, shocked, broken, convinced her life was ending. She thought of the woman she was now, sitting in a cozy Atlanta apartment with a man who saw her clearly and chose her fully. I love you too, she said, surprised by how easy the words felt. I love this life. I want to see where it goes. Calvin's smile was bright and unguarded. Then let us stay, he said. Let us keep building. Whatever comes next, we will face it together. He leaned across the table to kiss her, and Jada closed her eyes, savoring the steadiness of his presence. Later that day, as she walked through a nearby park on her lunch break, Jada called Alana. Please tell me you are calling with good news about the professor, Alana said. We are staying in Atlanta for another year, Jada said. And I told him I love him. Finally, Alana said with a delighted laugh. I have been waiting to hear you say that. It has been obvious through every video call. You light up when you talk about him. They chatted for a while about hometown updates and Jada's work. Alana said, Oh, by the way, Candace told me Leon got engaged. Some woman he met through his therapist's office. Apparently, she is a social worker with kids from a previous marriage. Small wedding in the spring. Jada waited for jealousy or anger. Nothing came. I am glad, Jada said, and realized she meant it. He deserves to find his own version of happiness. And I am grateful that his new life will keep him focused on something other than trying to tug me back into the past. You are a better woman than most, Alana said. Plenty of people would still be bitter. I spent enough time being bitter, Jada replied. I am done with that. I am just grateful that everything turned out the way it did. After the call, she sat on a bench and watched children run around the playground while joggers passed on the path. 2 years earlier, she had felt like her identity began and ended with being Leon's wife. Now, she knew herself as someone far more expansive. She was a woman who had faced betrayal and refused to collapse. A woman who had learned to advocate for herself, to gather support, to take bold steps toward a life she actually wanted. That evening, she and Calvin had dinner at a small restaurant in a lively Atlanta neighborhood. Over shared dessert, she told him about Leon's engagement. How do you feel about that? Calvin asked gently. Relieved, Jada said. Happy for him, even. And completely certain that our story ended where it needed to end. No regrets? Calvin asked. None, she said. If I had stayed in that marriage, I never would have known this version of myself. I never would have found this life with you. Who is this version of yourself? Calvin asked with a small smile. Jada thought about it, letting the answer rise slowly. I am someone who takes chances now, she said. Someone who speaks up instead of shrinking. Someone who knows her own worth and refuses to settle for less than respect and real love. I love all of those things about you, Calvin said. Good, Jada replied, smiling back. Because that is who you are with now. They walked home through the glittering streets, their fingers intertwined. As they climbed the stairs to their apartment, Jada felt a wave of gratitude so strong it almost brought her to her knees. She thought of the woman who had stood in her kitchen, staring at that text message, convinced her world had ended. That woman had been brought to the edge of herself. Instead of falling, she had stepped forward. She had gathered her courage, packed bags, changed locks, walked into law offices and courtrooms, sorted paperwork, faced the woman who had helped break her marriage, and then faced the man who had broken her heart. She had built something entirely new from the rubble: new work, new friends, new love, new dreams. She had discovered that happiness was not something someone else handed her or withheld from her. It was something she created through choices, choosing dignity over desperation, truth over denial, growth over stagnation, courage over fear. Leon had believed he was choosing excitement when he chose his affair. What he actually chose was a trail of broken trust and a version of himself he would spend years trying to repair. Jada had chosen differently. She had chosen herself, first in anger and survival, then in hope and intention. Her life in Atlanta with Calvin, her work surrounded by stories in the library, her friendships that had deepened through the fire, all of it had grown from that single, painful moment when the coffee cup slipped from her hand and shattered on the kitchen floor. That last betrayal, the one that had nearly destroyed her, had also cleared the way for the first day of her real life. And as she curled up on the couch next to Calvin that night, listening to the quiet sounds of the city outside and the steady rhythm of his breathing beside her, she knew with absolute certainty that she would never trade what she had now for the safety of the life she had once been afraid to lose. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.